Morning. Hope everybody had a good evening. We had a long day yesterday. Covered a lot of material. Everybody's smiling today. Anything interesting happen? Yeah? Yeah, I know we were talking about it at breakfast. It's already working. Some of you were playing around with this last night, working on these techniques, feeling better, really increasing the way you're feeling and the anticipation. And this one particular gentleman who's single just had never been able to attract anyone, female partner into his life. And he was working on that as a primary objective. Look, I want to have a relationship, which is a good objective. It's great to be in a relationship. And he was using this actually in class yesterday, really focusing on that. That was the one thing he was working on. And then last night, he went off by himself to a restaurant, and a woman just came right up to him. And started chatting in a conversation, and they wound up having dinner. And you were amazed but not amazed, because you were almost expecting it, right? Exactly. People always ask, when you do this, are you surprised at the results? And the answer is, if you're doing this effectively, you are not surprised at the results, because you expect it. So it's no surprise. And you've actually experienced it in your mind first, as if it's already happened. So when it happens, it's no surprise. In the movie Star Wars, the Jedi Master, Yoda, was training the young Jedi apprentice, Luke Skywalker. And in one particular scene, Luke Skywalker's jet plane had landed in a lake, and Yoda was teaching Luke how to use the Force to lift the jet plane out of the lake with his mind and move it on dry land so he could take off. And Luke tried to do this, and the jet plane began to lift and then went back down into the lake and sunk. Yoda then, frustrated with Luke and his inability to grasp this, used the Force, lifted the jet plane out with his mind onto dry land. And I know it's a movie, but here's the point. When Luke saw Yoda do this, Luke said, "Oh my, I don't believe it." And Yoda said, "That is why you fail." Because he couldn't even believe it. And that's why he couldn't do it in the beginning, because he didn't believe it. From a scriptural standpoint, there's an interesting story in the Bible about Jesus, who was walking on water. And Peter, the apostle, was looking at Jesus walking on water and was so excited. He went out to greet Jesus. And the Bible says that Peter walked on water. Peter was walking on the water. And it says, as Peter was walking on the water, Peter looked down and saw that he was walking on the water himself, and saw the waves, and saw the water, and became frightened and began to sink. Now, this is exactly what we're talking about. When you start thinking about what you don't want to happen, when fear and doubt come in, all of a sudden you get the opposite result. Remember, what you really, 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 really want, you will get. But also what you really, 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 really don't want, you get that too. Whatever you're thinking about, you get. And if you're thinking about what you don't want to happen, you know that because you feel crummy. And when you feel crummy, that's what's coming in. So to get what you want in life, anything and everything you want, you do the procedure. You define what you want. You focus on that with intensity and power, which means emotion, positive anticipation, as if you've already had it. You do that for a certain duration every day, the more the better, at least for a minute and a half each time. And then you have to believe without any doubt, which means you just need to focus on what you want and not what you don't want. And you know that because as you do that procedure, you'll feel good. So you do the procedure, which is thinking about what you want, anticipating that you've already received it. You know you're doing the procedure correctly if you're excited and you feel really good. If you see yourself in the picture and if you're feeling as if you've already achieved it, that's the ultimate. That's the first thing. And the second thing, throughout the day, always work on your emotions and work on feeling good all the time. Because that will get your positive energy up and make the procedure easier to apply and make everything happen. Questions? Yes? Question is about actions, the how, versus the thoughts. Now we all know that the thoughts are 99.9% of it, but the question is, you mean to tell me I can sit home and just think and create anything I want without physically doing anything? Don't I have to do something? And the answer is, no, you don't have to do anything. However, when you're using this technique, you will want to do things. Actions become a joy and a pleasure. But here's the trick. If you're doing any actions to make something happen, because we think we have to make it happen, so we go out there and have to do things. We have to work to make it happen. If you're doing any actions to make something happen that you want, and you feel frustrated or bad or annoyed doing the actions, your actions are fruitless. They're not going to create any results. Your actions should be a joy and a pleasure, even if you're working 18 hours a day. When you look at all the successful people, we all say the same thing. We love, not just like, we love what we're doing. It gives us incredible joy and exhilaration doing actions. But the thought process is first. The thought process is first. And when the actions become frustrating, that's when people decide, I'm not going to focus on the actions because that's making me think about what I don't want to happen and making me feel bad. I'm going to go golfing. I'm going to go to the movies. I'm going to take a vacation. I'm going to go to the beach. People say, we're in the midst of a crisis. How can you be taking a vacation? Because for me to go into the office and start working in the midst of this crisis, I'm going to feel absolutely horrible at this moment in time. So I need to do something so I can feel good. Because feeling good makes it all work. So the actions are not that significant. Doing is not that significant. And this is why the how, which is you're looking at your radar screen and you're thinking, how can this event work out to my advantage? How am I going to turn this situation around? And the answer is you don't know because you're looking at your radar screen. But what you have to know is that 99% of all the stuff that's available is off the radar screen. And the circumstances and events that the universe has given you because of what you have been vibrating and you have been creating in your life will work out to your advantage. And when you have that knowingness, you'll feel good and you'll always say, I have no idea how that's going to happen. I don't know why this is a good thing. When a bad thing happens, we understand it's not necessarily a bad thing. As a matter of fact, it never is a bad thing. There's a story about the man in China who had a son. And he said, I want my son to be safe and live a long life. And there's so much chaos going on in China and so much famine and war. I'm afraid for my son. I'm afraid he could be killed. I'm afraid he could be killed in war. I'm afraid we could die of famine or he could be sick. And I just want my son to live a long, healthy, happy life. And one day his son fell off a horse and broke his leg. And all of his friends said, oh, what a terrible thing. Your son fell off the horse and broke his leg. And the father said, I don't think it's a terrible thing. I don't know why, but I think actually it's a good thing. I don't know why, but I believe it's a good thing. I feel good. The next day, the Chinese army came riding into town, and they took all the young men and they recruited them into the army to fight in the wars. But they didn't take this man's son because he had a broken leg. And the story goes on and on and on to talk about how each situation that happened to the son, which appeared to be bad at the time, turned out to be a blessing. And we don't know how. We don't need to know how. The key is your thought process. And the key is how you think. The evidence of how you're thinking is twofold. Number one, how are you feeling? If you're feeling good, that means your thought process is right on line. If you're thinking bad, that means it's not. The other evidence is what you're saying. What are the words you're saying? Are you looking at things as they are and focusing on what you don't want or what seems to be terrible? Or are you looking forward and creating tomorrow with anticipation? So words that you say really are a strong indicator. And this is another powerful technique, is to use your words wisely and say things in a way which will help focus your thoughts. Words are very important because they help focus your thoughts. They do two things. They show you what you're thinking, but they also help create and focus your thoughts. So by saying certain things in a certain way, it'll help focus your thoughts in the correct method. So I've been giving you a lot of phrases on these, for those of you listening on the CDs and for those of you who are here. That's why listening to these CDs over and over again. But these are patterns, neural pathways that you have to start developing. They're automatic for me and other folks. You need to start saying things and start developing some speech patterns, which will start developing some neural pathways, which will start developing some predominant thought patterns, which will start developing some predominant constant vibrations that you're transmitting out of your brain, which will create more like-minded positive vibrations, which will make everything work better and faster. So various things that you have to say verbally with your mouth, in whatever language you're speaking. Things such as, everything always works out for me. I'm lucky. I'm blessed. This appears to be really negative, but I know everything will work out fine. Everything will work out fine. Everything will work out fine. I don't know how, but everything always works out fine in the end. All is well. Everything is just fine. I expect miracles and I get miracles. Everything always turns out to my advantage in the end. This will ultimately work out to my benefit. See, those are the type of speech patterns. And when you understand this incredible concept, life becomes so much more of a pleasure. And life becomes so much easier as you go forward. Does that make sense? Question? Okay. What if I'm doing everything? I'm doing the technique. I seem to be doing everything. I'm doing everything on the list. I'm going for walks. I'm eating right. I'm doing the Callahan. I'm doing all